On January 6, 2021, hundreds of angry protesters stormed the U.S. Capitol building, feeling frustrated and believing their government had failed them. Believing the election of Joe Biden to be fraudulent, they aimed to stop the congressional proceedings that would declare him the next president. Certainly, voting regulations and circumstances were different in the 2020 election. That is undeniable. However, no objector verified their claims of fraud in the courts. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. According to Reuters, litigants presented over 50 election fraud cases. None of them surpassed judicial scrutiny. Tensions surrounding the 2020 election remain high, even 2 years after its completion, especially with the former president facing potential charges for alleged meddling in the election. However, January 6 was not the first uprising and attempted coup in American history, and it probably will not be the last. Comparing a little-known socialist uprising in early 20th century rural Oklahoma and the January 6 riots leads to some interesting questions on the common causes of American revolts.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
What's up, everyone? This is Coach W here, back with another episode from the Annals of American History. Before we continue examining an angry, deadly socialist coup in the country's heartland, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and share the video. Early Oklahoma was not the conservative stalwart she is today. In fact, the state's constitution was heavily influenced by the Sequoia Convention, a progressive meeting that drafted the constitution for the ill-fated state of the 5 civilized tribes. Oklahoma became a state in 1907, well after the start of the labor movement. As such, organized labor became a strong driving force in early Oklahoma. While some industries in the young state enjoyed the protection and collective bargaining ability of unions, Oklahoma's tenant farmers were left to fend for themselves. A tenant farmer essentially rented land from a landowner and farmed that tract of land. Depending on the terms of the agreement, a tenant farmer paid with cash or crops. While this may seem lucrative at first, a bad crop could have meant a tenant farmer missing payments and owing money. Unsavory banking practices contributed to this system. Before the rebellion, a couple banks in the agitated area, southeastern Oklahoma, even gave out loans to farmers with 2,000% interest. This was a challenging and seemingly inescapable system. Land was not easy to obtain either, so it's not as if they could buy a plot for themselves and pay off the debt. These desperate farmers ran into the welcoming arms of the Socialist Party, who advocated for a more equitable system. In the deeply religious heartland, Christianity mixed the gospel with left-leaning economic policy. Some sources have gone on to state that Baptist churches preached with Marx's Communist Manifesto. In eastern Oklahoma alone, the membership in a radical union, the Working Class Union, peaked at possibly 20,000 members. Statewide, the union may have claimed 35,000 members, though much uncertainty about these numbers remains. Regardless, socialism was taking hold in Oklahoma, especially in the southeastern tenant farming communities. Economic difficulties for tenant farmers laid the foundation for rebellion, but World War I lit the fuse. In the farming communities of southeastern Oklahoma, the entire family worked the farm. In May of 1917, just over a month after the U.S. entered World War I, President Wilson signed legislation requiring a draft, a move that could rip older male children, a vital source of farm labor, from these families already facing hardship. Eventually, the rebellious Oklahomans had enough. Native American, black, and white men organized a group of a few hundred. They intended to march from southeastern Oklahoma to Washington, D.C., and to overthrow the government. They planned on replacing it with a socialist regime. They were promised reinforcements numbering in the millions, but these never materialized. This rebellion came to be known as the Green Corn Rebellion because the men expected to survive on green corn pillaged on their eastward march. On August 3, 1917, the men gathered and began the rebellion in March. After inflicting minimal damage to infrastructure, the rebellion met a swift end from posses assembled by the locals. The uprising claimed the lives of 3 men. An additional 150 faced prison time. The failed coup meant the end of the Socialist Party in Oklahoma. Learning from the events of January 6th and the Green Corn Rebellion requires an analysis of each event's causes. In 1917, Oklahoma tenant farmers felt hopeless. The government failed to protect them from greedy landowners and economic hardship. Despite the strong showing on the state level, the Socialist Party lacked the numbers to accomplish anything on the national level. The farmers lacked the capital to influence politics, and their situation was desperate. Feeling ignored and abandoned by their government, they stood up and rebelled. In 2021, the rioters felt hopeless. While political leaning colors the interpretation of events, a few things remain undisputed. Despite all the allegations and subsequent lawsuits, the rioters were out of options. The courts didn't rule how they wanted, and they believed that the courts would protect them from a fraudulent election. Vice President Pence remained resolute to exercise his duty and show no intention of overturning the election. The Constitution provides a remedy for people in these predicaments: the guaranteed right to speak freely, to protest, to vote, and to petition the government provide viable forms of objection. After contemplating the specifics of these two events, two questions emerge. Are these conflicts part of democracy's natural cycle? Or are these conflicts the result of a series of broken social contracts where the people believe the government has failed to keep its end of the bargain? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere between these two extremes. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and share the video in the channel. That will help us get the word out there. Stay tuned for more history and education related content.